Welcome back to the Georgia Show. I'm Bill Quinn. Todd Wood is on international assignment this evening. We hope to have him back for our Sunday show and wish him well. And we'll be excited to see what he comes up with. He is over in Armenia and doing a lot of work. So before we get going this evening, thank you to all of those who have already invested with us through our no ad subscriptions. It is really helping. It is very much appreciated. And for those who haven't done this yet, understand that it's relatively inexpensive, $10 a month or $100 for the entire year. And you're able to get rid of the ads on any of the digital properties that CDM offers all the way across the country. So it helps you make sure that you can scan the various digital properties, go through the latest news, and do it without having to subject yourself to the various advertisements. It's much appreciated, and it continues to help us invest in the very best ways so that we can bring you the best news fastest and so forth. And you've seen that happen in the last couple of weeks and last month. We were able to break a couple of key stories right here in Georgia before anybody else, and it's much appreciated. It's helping us get that job done for you. We're going to talk about several topics tonight. We're going to delve into some of the edgy stuff. I'm going to ask that you take a deep breath, and we're going to try to educate you a little bit on some of the things that we're observing, some of which we're going to hold back any conclusions on, but we're going to offer the data and tell you a little bit of background that you may not already have regarding what's going on, because we believe that as we sit here tonight, we are living through a very important time in American history. We just this week have seen a former president that appears to now have evidence against him suggesting potential treason and a potential, I'll call it a coup attempt against President Trump during the early time of his first administration. We've seen the release of 230,000 documents associated with Martin Luther King just in the last couple of days. Again, another piece of American history that's been hidden away from the public eye now for decades and is only now being released. And so between that, some of the things that Trump is saying, some of the things that Tulsi Gabbard and others are saying, we believe this is a very critical time to make sure that you are paying attention. And I think you're going to find that you need to pay attention to multiple parties. In the past, we've talked about truth sayers, if you will, folks like Tucker Carlson, Alex Jones, and others. All of a sudden, there seem to be new players in the truth sayer ranks. Tulsi Gabbard is a key one. RFK Jr. has been a key one in past months. And so now we look back and we can tell that we are beginning to learn many of the things that have been hidden from us for, as I said, decades. And so the more that we learn, the better off you are able to deal with even more as it comes out, and we believe it will. So quickly, let's go through a quick recap of what happened in the last few days for those that haven't seen or haven't been able to keep up, and let's talk about that. So earlier in the week and last week, Tulsi Gabbard brought out information that showed that within the Obama administration, in the days following the 2016 election, there was an effort to take what the intelligence community had been reporting was interest but no real interference from Russia, and change that reporting, change that story into something much more nefarious. Basically, according to the New York Post reporting, the Obama administration whipped up Russia investigation in what they call a treasonous conspiracy, and that's in using, I believe, Tulsi Gabbard's language. Here's more. It really is, and this is something reposted by Donald J. Trump himself. It was manufactured intelligence created in order to try to put doubt in the American people's minds about Trump's validity, both as a president and validity as, interested in the best interest of the American public. So just an incredible disclosure. What's interesting now is after those first few days when this came out, Obama's team, I guess we'll call it, actually responded to this. And so let's start with the response that they came out with, and then we'll talk about what's happened in the hours and days since that happened. So let's bring this up.
To the presidency, our office does not normally dignify the constant nonsense and misinformation flowing out of this White House with a response. But these claims are outrageous enough to merit one. These bizarre allegations are ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction. Nothing in the document issued last week undercuts the widely accepted conclusion that Russia worked to influence the 2016 presidential election, but did not successfully manipulate any votes. These findings were affirmed in a 2020 report by the bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee, led by then Chairman Marco Rubio. That comes from Patrick Rodenbush in President Obama's office.
We're going to come back to that in just a couple of minutes. We're going to go on to further reporting between Laura Trump and Tulsi Gabbard. But it is important to understand that they were very quickly trying to change the American public's understanding of what's happened. This is a schematic of actually what was done. So leading up to the 2016 election, the intelligence community was watching Russia and was watching what they appeared to be trying to do. And ultimately, I think they found that they had purchased some advertising, perhaps on Facebook or something else. But the intelligence community determined prior to the election that, in fact, they didn't have really the capability to do anything to truly interfere with American elections. That was reported up to the election and was due to be reported on December 7th, just following the 2016 election. That intel report was squashed, and in its place, they held a meeting on December 9th in which a team of people led by, now we understand, President Obama, were put together in order to manufacture a story which would lead to concerns about the validity of Trump's election, the validity of Trump himself. And so you can understand that this was more than a hoax. This was an actual plan. They held a meeting. The people were invited to a meeting, and here is a summary of some of the conclusions released as part of Tulsi Gabbard's release. Here's some of the people that attended, names that we see again and again and again: Susan Rice, Andrew McCabe, James Clapper, John Brennan, Victoria Nuland, Loretta Lynch, General Dunford, and others. And so, this is a an unbelievably concerning circumstance. And here's a picture in that time frame. And boy, you can tell these people do not look very happy, do they? So in the following days now, we've seen some very interesting things. Let's hear first about Laura Trump and Tulsi Gabbard picking apart Obama's team's statement regarding Tulsi's original release.
To what we heard from former President Obama there. He's saying that none of this makes any sense, that this is a distraction. What do you say to that?
It's the art of deflection coming from former President Obama, as well as his friends who are still in Congress today, and Senator Warner and Congressman Jim Himes, really all basically saying that exact same statement, which doesn't actually address the issue that was revealed in great detail in the over 100 documents that we released last week, and the documents that we will be releasing later this week, that point to the undeniable fact that you laid out in your introduction to this segment, is that the intelligence community had one assessment: that Russia did not have the intent or capability to try to impact the outcome of the U.S. election leading up to Election Day. The same assessment was made after Donald Trump was elected by the American people as president in 2016, defeating Hillary Clinton. And it wasn't until after that pulled President's Daily Brief document that you referenced that the Principals Committee was called in the National Security Council, and President Obama then directed Obama's DNI James Clapper to lead the effort to create this new intelligence community assessment that detailed not if, but how Moscow attempted to influence the outcome of the U.S. election. So this is the thing that I think people should pay attention to, is neither the message from President Obama's office, neither the statements coming from Democrats in Congress today and their friends in the propaganda media. None of them are addressing this fact that there was a shift, a 180-degree shift from the intelligence community's assessment leading up to the election to the one that President Obama directed be produced after Donald Trump won the election, that completely contradicted those assessments that had come previously. The second thing I want to address that's very important, Laura, is that you in the clip that you played, you saw John Brennan, James Clapper, James Comey stated with high confidence this January intelligence community assessment that they drafted at the direction of President Obama. The fact is that they used already discredited information like the Steele dossier. They knew it was discredited at that time, yet they used it as a source for this document that they claim to have high confidence in. They used intelligence that some of these intelligence community professionals rejected previously because of the lack of credibility and the lack of the ability to vet with any kind of confidence whether or not that information or intelligence was accurate and could be used for an assessment. There's a long laundry list of facts and intelligence reporting that directly contradict the statement coming from President Obama's office and those who are trying to deflect away from what actually happened, which was after Donald Trump was elected, led by President Obama, there was an effort to create a document that would serve as a foundation for what would be a years-long coup against President Trump, therefore trying to subvert the will of the American people who sent him to the White House in 2016.
So a couple things to unpack there. One is you heard her explain that, the attempt by the Obama team is simply trying to deflect attention from the reality of what they've found and what they have now declassified and released. They're citing things like, something to do with other, with other reports and so forth. That's not the point. Ms. Gabbard has released hundreds of documents already that show what's been done here, and some very key ones. She's going to release this week, and already, I believe, has done so, some additional documents that show how this was put together, who led it, some of the communications, and so forth. And the road leads straight back to Barack Obama. Incredibly troubling. For some, the culmination of a bunch of years of suspicion. But the reality here is that you're talking about a sitting president, at least at that time, immediately following an election, taking plans and putting together plans to try to undercut the validity of the president-elect. Just an absolute abomination of the U.S. standards and laws and practices and so forth. We're going to come back in just a moment. We're going to see some of the things that I believe you need to be careful of in the coming days, because as this continues to bubble, we're already seeing people try to take steps to squash this, even though we have the documents, even though we have literally hundreds, thousands of people researching these documents to explain exactly what happened, how it happened, who was involved, and when. So let's take a break first. We'll come right back, and during the break, we're going to hear from David Cross, one of our key partners and sponsors.
This is a special report.
Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, We can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
Okay. So as we go forward, I will remind you of something we've talked about in the past, and that is the mainstream media's goal, objective, and perhaps direction to try to squash certain news that they do not want, or whoever is driving them from behind does not want to be fully heard or even understood by the American public. I'm going to show you an example of this. Tulsi Gabbard, during one of her press conferences, is being covered by CNN, and they seem to take steps to try to make sure that you don't hear what she's going to say. Let me show you this.
Intelligence community assessments released in the months leading up to the November 2016 election concluded that Russia had neither the intent nor capability to impact the outcome of the U.S. election. On December 5th.
We've been listening there to the Director of National Intelligence.
Now just listen, they step over her and he begins narrating what she's going to say using other language, but does so in a way that you can't hear really what she's saying.
Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard continuing on what has now been a multi-day effort, not only with public statements like this, but release of documents to attempt to back up the quite extreme allegation that President Obama is guilty of treason and that he worked in some sort of conspiracy with Hillary Clinton, etc., in the assessment by the intelligence community at the time that Russia interfered in the 2016 election.
So you can hear that he steps over her, prevents you from being able to hear what she's saying, obviously, in my mind, in an attempt to make sure that you can't continue to assimilate the information that she's sharing that underscores what's happened here. This is a technique. They've done it before. You will probably hear similar things on other channels, and I would ask you to be aware of it and consider perhaps not listening to a channel that's going to do that to someone that's trying to get you on news. So the other thing to keep in mind now is, President Trump, throughout the period following the election in 2020, really throughout the last 4.5-5 years, throughout his campaign, has maintained that the 2020 election was rigged and that there were problems that we did not yet know about. They've gone after court cases. They've gone after various investigations trying to get to the bottom of this. And yet now comes out information that that shows that, in fact, we've already shown that the Russia, the Steele dossier was false. That was proven a couple of years ago. Now we find out that this whole thing appears to have been a coup or a plot by the Obama administration to, again, undercut an incoming president. He was asked about that in the Oval Office in the last, I believe, 48 hours. So let's listen to his statement about what this is.
Gettr has submitted a criminal referral to the Department of Justice. From your perspective, who should the DOJ target as part of their investigation? What specific figures in the Obama administration?
Well, based on what I read, and I read pretty much what you read, it would be President Obama. He started it. And Biden was there with him, and Comey was there, and Clapper. The whole group was there. Brennan, they were all there in a room. Right here, this was the room. This is much more beautiful than it was then, but that's okay. I have nice pictures up. They came out of the vaults. They were in there for 100 years. This is much more beautiful. We have the Declaration of Independence now in the room, which wasn't here. I guess people didn't feel too good about putting it here, but I do. But you know what? If you look at those papers, they have them stone cold, and it was President Obama. It wasn't lots of people all over the place. It was them too. But the leader of the gang was President Obama, Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? And except for the fact that he gets shielded by the press for his entire life, that's the one look, he's guilty. It's not a question. I like to say Let's give it time. It's there. He's guilty. This was treason. This was every word you can think of. They tried to steal the election. They tried to obfuscate the election. They did things that nobody's ever even imagined, even in other countries. You've seen some pretty rough countries. This man has seen some pretty rough countries, but you've never seen anything like it.
So you can see that in here that President Obama is focused directly on, President Trump is focused directly on President Obama as the driver of this. Now, here's a post from Nick Sorter, who we follow rather closely. And he notes that in one of the latest releases by Tulsi Gabbard, she's released documents that prove Obama directly gave the order to publish the Russia collusion hoax, if you will, and knew at the time that there was no proof that Putin had backed Trump. What we're going to talk about in a few minutes was there is now emerging evidence that, in fact, Russia, was concerned because they could tell that Hillary was in some sort of distress, and we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. But they obviously, if they wanted weakness in the U.S., they would not have been backing Trump. They would have been backing Hillary. But indeed, the intelligence research showed that they had neither the intent nor really the capability to directly influence voting during the elections. So we see this from Nick Sorter. We see more from Tulsi Gabbard coming out to further explain what was done, how it was done, who was involved, the names of the individuals, and so forth. And we showed you much of this during our last show. If you go to Twitter and look up DNI Tulsi Gabbard, you will be able to actually go to some of the declassified documents and find those in the dni.gov files. You can see the link down there, but if you'll simply go to X, formerly known as Twitter, and look up Tulsi Gabbard, you will find a link to be able to access the actual documents, one of which we show here being cited by Nick Sorter. We talked about CNN cutting off Tulsi Gabbard. And we also touched on the fact that there appear to be folks in the Congress that are literally attempting to step in front of this. Now, some of these you would expect might be Democrats trying to prevent Obama from taking the full brunt, but others, unfortunately, are coming from the Republican ranks, it appears, and that is as concerning, or perhaps more concerning, than the Democrats stepping in. What have you heard from Elon Musk and others, specifically in the last month or so? Comments continuing to revolve around uniparty, meaning, are people really who they say they are? Are Democrats who they say they are? Are, more importantly to us, perhaps, are Republicans who they say they are? And even locally, we can see now questions emerging suggesting, have people been saying they are conservatives, Republicans indeed, and may actually not have that belief system? Maybe they're masquerading, for lack of a better term, as a Republican. I will ask that you keep your eyes on this. We'll report more on this as we see more, but it is quite concerning. Cotton and others are indicative of this, and we'll probably see more. So keep your eyes open on that, and let's attempt to make sure we look factually at what each member of Congress is doing. I think that's exceedingly important, especially right now, because one of the ways to judge who people really are is not to listen to what they say, not to listen to their rhetoric, if you will, but to look at what they do and what they have done. And we have people in Congress that have voted to send billions, for example, over to Ukraine in spite of the wishes of the American people, and have celebrated on the floor of the House, for example, waving Ukrainian flags and dancing around and doing all this kind of stuff. And many have gone over and shaken the hand of Zelensky and looked the other way at the things that Zelensky has done, shutting down churches, imprisoning priests, appointing an ambassador that is said to be something like a satanic priestess. Who knows what these people are thinking when they do these things, but it is up to us to keep our eyeballs on this so that we can make logical judgments. We talked about Hillary Clinton and some of the things that are emerging around Hillary. Bear with me for a minute. We're going to pull up a couple things that have emerged in the last few days, and people had noted some unusual behavior from Hillary going back to the period just before the election. And now comes word that perhaps there's reasoning behind some of these strange behaviors. Let's listen to, again, Tulsi Gabbard make some comments regarding Hillary Clinton.
Level DNC emails that detailed evidence of Hillary's, quote, psycho-emotional problems, uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness, and that then Secretary Clinton was allegedly on a daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers.
Here's a video many people have seen, and we wonder what the actual condition was. It seems to have, certain words wrapped around it. But let's listen to this, and let's observe this. This is an appearance that Hillary made. Again, I believe it was in the lead up to the 2016 election. And she seems to act pretty oddly in this crowd. Is this what Tulsi Gabbard is referring to? Well, we're not sure exactly, but it appears to be something very much like what she's talking about. And I think we'll learn more as we go forward over the coming days and weeks in terms of what that condition might have been. But you'll recall that around that time frame, Hillary took, I believe, a fall. Might have been getting on a plane, if I recall correctly. She also took to wearing dark blue glasses, which are associated with certain types of conditions that can be aided by wearing certain types of filters over the eyes. And lastly, you'll remember that she had to be spirited away in a van during one of the 9/11 memorial events just before the election. Now, again, what caused these things, we don't know. But it appeared to be quite serious, especially when she had to be loaded into the van bodily and appeared later on in front of Chelsea's apartment elsewhere in the city. But we will stay on this, and we want to make sure that people are aware that there does now seem to have been something going on with Hillary that had an effect on perhaps her abilities, her reactions, and so forth. Let's go ahead and take another break before we continue on. We're almost at the halfway point. Let's hear, we've done a great amount of work on nutrition. And what most people are now learning is that nutrition is not just the types of foods that you eat, but also making sure that you have the correct micronutrients, the things that get into your cells and help your cells individually work better. And so one of the key ones is what we're going to hear about next. And Let's play this.
I'm a naturopathic doctor. We are in the world of medicine very acquainted with many modalities, but probably the one most familiar with everybody would be two things: homeopathy and herbs, maybe some nutrients too, vitamins, minerals, that kind of thing. Now, we do know a lot about the drugs because we have to find out what drug you're taking affects you and what nutrient it depletes you of, because most every drug pharmacy product will deplete something. So we have been trained and we have a database that we can check into that says this is going to take your B12 away. The pharmaceutical company cannot patent organic substances made by the body. You're not born short of Advil. You're not born short of Ritalin.
Yeah.
You can be born short of insulin, right? Mm-hmm. The answers to staying healthy and keeping away from even SARS or any of those things getting into you is staying healthy.
Mm-hmm.
You and I get sick because our terrain gets out of balance. Well, that's the same thing in the soil. You and I are made from this thing called dirt. And when we get out of balance, we have the same thing happen. Weeds start to grow in our body. Right? And that's what we want in our body. We want nutrients that we don't understand how to get well enough yet because our suppliers are lacking knowledge on nutrient density foods.
So this is what drove you to develop this, was your knowledge of this, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know that.
So Nucleo Boost, go to cdmnutrition.com and learn more about how you can use Nucleo Boost to make sure that you are getting the right type of nutrition and that you're able to actually impact your cells' performance in ways that will make you, from what I understand, feel a lot better. Okay, back to what we're seeing this week. So we're going to cover two things, and then we'll get on to something pretty interesting. So again, President Trump now is focused directly on this is something put together by President Obama. And again, we saw his comments in the Oval Office talking about, they need to start with Obama and then expand out to the other players. Well, who are some of the other players? Well, here's an example, and he posted it. Trump posted it himself, and he's listing these folks almost like the old Brady Bunch. And again, it's the names that we've talked about: Brennan, Clapper, Comey, Valerie Jarrett, Susan Rice, and others, and of course Barack Obama himself. And it does appear that these folks are going to be tied together in this. We'll call it a plot, I guess, for the moment. We will watch carefully to see what comes of the next steps here. We do expect that, given the speed of which, the information on Obama and this Russian collusion hoax came out, and then almost immediately followed by the MLK release, we wonder if there aren't going to be several more releases in quick succession. It feels to many like we are going through a period of a lot of stuff in various sectors coming out, and that's why we were suggesting, keep your head on a pivot and be prepared to do some quick research so you understand other things as they potentially are released. Here's something, back to Hillary for just a moment. We're not going to speculate on this, but we did find it fascinating. And somebody brought it up and said, did you listen to this particular quote that Trump made? And if you recall, a few months ago, he stopped calling Hillary Crooked Hillary and started, for reasons we don't understand, calling her Beautiful Hillary. What does that mean? Well, we don't exactly know, but Listen to this and listen very carefully. One of the things we've said in past shows is listen very carefully to Trump's exact words. He rarely makes mistakes, and if he does, sometimes they mean things. We don't know what they might mean. But here's an interesting clip.
Hillary Clinton. Now, you know, I used to call her Crooked Hillary. I'd say Crooked Hillary, but I took that name away from her. That was a great day. About 2 months ago, I said, you know what? Because I don't like using names on people, doubles. I think we have a lot of words out there. So now I call her Beautiful Hillary. She's a beautiful woman. And
I'm going to play that one more time.
Hillary Clinton. Now, you know, I used to call her Crooked Hillary. I'd say Crooked Hillary, but I took that name away from her. That was a great day. About 2 months ago, I said, you know what? Because I don't like using names on people, doubles. I think we have a lot of words out there. So now I call her Beautiful Hillary. She's a beautiful woman. And
Beautiful Hillary, and I don't like using, did he say names on people's doubles? We're not sure what he meant by that, but we will let it sit for now and continue to do more research as we go forward. We're going to move on to kind of a very interesting topic. He has put out a number of posts in the last 2 months. We're going to start with the most recent. And we're now at a point where we really have to begin asking some direct questions about some of the things that he is showing. What might he mean by this? Who is releasing it? And what parallels may exist between something he's released and something from the past? So we're going to show you that, and we're going to take you through a little bit of historical perspective here. And we're going to give you visibility to one of the ways that you can do some of your own research if you choose to. But we're gonna begin calling out some of these things because you really just can't ignore them anymore, and we'll show you why. Here is a post that came out from the White House and from Trump, and it says, "I was the hunted, now I'm the hunter." President Donald J. Trump, and shows the White House. And indeed, this did in fact come out from the White House on I believe it was the 22nd. But it bears a striking resemblance to something that's quite a bit older. And we're going to show you this. Some people remember the notion of Q posts. And the Q posts, in quick summary, began appearing back in October of 2017. They covered all kinds of different topics. They appeared initially on bulletin boards like 4chan and 8chan that most people that like myself weren't familiar with, but in some cases younger people, in some cases folks that were gamers even would look at these boards, and they began being noticed, these posts. I'm going to show you one, and we're going to look at the dates involved and just consider for the moment. We're not going to draw any conclusions, but we're going to consider a couple things. Here is, on the right-hand side, you'll see a post from October 14th, 2020 that says, "Hunters become the hunted." Gosh, it sounds pretty darn close to "I was the hunted, now I'm the hunter," doesn't it? Well, there's another post, also a Q post, from a different period that's even more interesting in all of this. We'll click to that. This post says, "Hunters become the hunted." This goes back to July 22nd, 2019. What date was the center post released from the White House? We believe it came out on July 21st, 2025. So what does this all mean? Well, we're not going to guess, but we can't fail to recognize that there seems to be some commonality here. We've also seen this a bit in the past. Here's a post from Trump going back to May. At that time, he posted this, and it said, "All roads lead to Obama." Keep in mind, this is well before Tulsi Gabbard's release this week. This goes back to May now. "Retruth if you want public military tribunals." Again, at the time this came out, it shocked many people. They didn't know what to make of it. And now, in retrospect, we wonder if this was some sort of foreshadowing. Well, again, we don't know. But let's go on one more. Also in May, Trump released this, and it said, "He's on a mission from God, and nothing can stop what is coming." Nothing can stop what is coming is a post, a saying, if you will, that dates back to the Q posts going back quite a bit. It appears in a number of them. One of the earliest, or perhaps the earliest, is November 20th, 2018. Nothing can stop what is coming. And that is verbatim in Trump's post in May. Where are we going next? There's no way for us to tell as we sit here tonight, but we do have a suspicion that this means something. What does it mean? We're not going to guess. But we will give you a little hint as to how you can do your own sort of review of this. Here is the Q posts are available through several different sites. One of the most prevalent is something called QAGG.news. So instead of being www, website.com, it's QAGG.news. If you go there, you can use their help functions and things, and you can actually look up any of the Q posts using various search terms. You'll find that there's approximately 5,000 Q posts that came out between 2017 and 2022, I believe, was one of the last ones. And they had a couple different gaps where you wouldn't see anything for a while. They might not post anything. Who posted these? We don't know. It has been suggested by military leaders that a team of military assigned to do certain types of research was potentially responsible for these. But again, we don't know, and we can't prove that. So they are fascinating, and as we go forward, we may find more and more things to compare, and we'll see if we can bring those up as they emerge. But there's just been, just this last couple of months, there's been 3 different posts directly from either the White House or Trump that seem to have bearing. And so we wanted to begin giving you the ability to look for yourself, see what you can find, and that you think may be telling. I will tell you that many have gone through, beginning with the very first post back in 2017, and read all of them. It is a daunting task because there are 5,000 of them, but it's something that you can do if you choose to do. Okay, let's catch up now with what's going on in Georgia. So last week we reported that there was a meeting inclusive of Josh McCoon, Mr. Whatley showed up, Alex Kaufman, and other folks were at the table that aren't pictured here, Dennis Futch and Jason Thompson, and we understand Ginger Howard and Betsy Kramer. We don't know who for sure the people are at the table on the left and right. We had understood from some of our listeners that gentleman on the left might be a former IBM executive that used to run IBM Asia Pac. We're not sure of that. We had invited that gentleman to reach out if in fact that was him, and I don't believe we've heard. So we'll see over time. But most notably now, one of the strange things that's been going on is, of course, the First Liberty failure, and the fact that it appeared that First Liberty had donated money to the Georgia GOP. Many people then were following what Raffensperger did last week in returning $8,000 or more to the receiver for the First Liberty legal matter. Others have been calling the Georgia GOP to do much the same thing. Well, lo and behold, Josh McCoon in the last couple of days has issued a statement and indeed remitted a check, we are told, and made that statement in this release, saying that they had remitted back to the receiver $36,000 and change originally brought in from the Frosts. That's great. Good step. We will give credit to those who do the right thing, and this appears to have been the right thing. Any dollars that come back would ostensibly be used by the receiver to begin making up some of the money that was lost, perhaps fraudulently, from victims of the First Liberty Ponzi scheme. However, this does not address any of the people within the Frost family that occupy slots on the Georgia GOP State Committee, Executive Committee, or any leadership positions in Coweta County or other leadership positions in the state of Georgia. Many people, hundreds, maybe thousands now, are calling for these folks to be removed from these positions. Why? Well, one, they've done something that appears to have been terribly wrong and not in keeping with the best interests of Georgians, nor in keeping with the best standards of the Georgia Republican Party. So at the very least, they should offer their resignations. Again, they should step down off the state committee, we believe, and others believe. Brant Frost 5 and Mother Krista Frost occupy positions on the Coweta County GOP. It appeared a week and a half ago that Brant Frost 5 was going to, quote unquote, step back from the chairmanship of that county's GOP. But then just a few days later, it appeared that that had been changed and he was back in the chairmanship again. It was also that week that it was reported that he was starting a new company, ostensibly to do something very much like what First Liberty had been doing, creating loans and such. So again, many people are calling for these folks to be changed. One particularly notable issue that people are calling out, and that it appears Josh McCoon could act on, is just following the Georgia State Convention, Josh McCoon appointed Krista Frost, Brant Frost 5's sister and daughter of Brant Frost 4, the founder of First Liberty. Josh McCoon had appointed Katie Frost to be the chairman of a financial oversight committee for the Georgia GOP. Financial oversight, meaning we're going to make sure that people are doing things right. This is the daughter in the family that has been associated with First Liberty Building and Loan, that, according to the SEC, has been acting fraudulently and taking people's money, and has now put many of those investors' money at risk. And this is the person that Josh McCoon appointed to be the chairman of the Financial Oversight Committee. Nearly everybody that knows this is calling for her to be removed from that position and for Josh McCoon to take that action immediately. We again give him credit for returning the money that was donated to the Georgia GOP. That was the right thing to do, and we will give credit for that. This is the next thing that needs to be done. There's no reason that someone that is associated with a company that has now been halted based on an SEC filing and federal investigation should be doing anything with regard to finances for the Georgia GOP, and that needs to change. So we will continue to report on that. There have been additional filings in the case, one of which you'll recall that a week ago we reported that Brant Frost IV had, in an announcement that he released to the AJC, said that he would take personal and complete responsibility for everything that happened. It was, I'm paraphrasing, but essentially, it's all me. I will work. I will apologize, but I can't based on the legal situation right now. But I will work to make this right for everybody, and it is all me. I'm taking full responsibility. Again, I'm paraphrasing. That now appears to have changed. They have, through his attorney, they have filed a brief asserting his Fifth Amendment rights, which include the right to make no statement. What will that do to the receiver's ability to get cooperation from Mr. Frost IV? We don't know, but it doesn't look very good. And it does seem to be a departure from what he had originally said. Again, we note this propensity for folks associated with these Frosts to say one thing and then a few days later do something different. Brand Frost V is stepping back from the chairmanship of Coweta, and then all of a sudden, a few days later, he's back in the chairmanship. Brand Frost IV says that he will take full and complete responsibility, and then a few days later, he's asserting his Fifth Amendment rights. Seems to be a pattern, in my opinion. So again, we will keep our eyes on this. We think that there's more coming. We do see another filing from the receiver, Mr. Greg Hayes. We're going to issue an article tomorrow with information on Mr. Hayes and how to reach him for victims or others that may have the need to make their identities known. Some may have information that Mr. Hayes may find useful. We would encourage folks that believe they have information, again, to reach out, and we'll put that information in an article tomorrow on the Georgia Record. From what we gather from a filing by the receiver, Mr. Hayes, they are doing a very rigorous job at looking at the background, the transactions, the relationships between the Frost family's members, between First Liberty Building and Loan, their ancillary companies, the what are called the other associated companies that may have received certain assets or may receive monies through First Liberty. And they're doing what appears to be a very thorough job of this. At the same time, we believe that there's probably people in Georgia that could help that effort by disclosing additional information to the receiver. And we encourage them to do so in a factual and forthright way. I think it's the right thing to do. We know that some people have unfortunately lost a very significant portion of their lifetime investments. Others have been stung, but perhaps not hurt quite as badly. But for those that have been badly hurt, we want to make sure that the receiver has full capability to receive and claw back any dollars, because every dollar helps contribute back to the folks that may have been harmed in this First Liberty scheme. So again, we ask folks to to consider that. And I know that based on the folks that I know around Georgia, many, if they do have information, will bring it forward. So look for that, and we'll have that article up in the morning on the Georgia Record, so folks know how to take action there. The other thing that we'll disclose or talk about just for a few minutes. We're not going to show the video. I probably will show a portion of the video we're going to discuss here on Insist on Truth in the coming days. But as usual, we are very impressed with the work of Laura Logan. She is just a wonderful person. I got the chance to meet her personally during one of the Mar-a-Lago events last year. And we want to give her credit for the reporting that she does and some of the amazing interviews that delve into topics that are difficult for some to even broach. One of the ones that she has out and is just released is an interview with Mike Smith, someone I've been fortunate enough and honored to meet. Mike has produced 2 movies now, one of which is Out of Shadows. The other is Into the Light. And within her interview, she and Mike talk about some very interesting topics that as we go through and look at what we've experienced, what we've seen throughout Georgia, across the world in some cases, in the past couple of years, there seems to be this fight against, usually against Christianity. We see these strange doings at the Olympics. We see people making fun of the Last Supper. We see people mimicking and making fun of Christianity in a number of cases. Articles in Vanity Fair that again appear to mock Christ, to mock religion. And they delve into this, and they delve into it specifically through Mike Smith's background. He has been a stunt man and stunt coordinator in Hollywood. And he reports and details some very troubling things that he has observed while in his role in Hollywood and subsequent to an injury that he sustained during one of his stunts. So two things. We will encourage you to go to Laura Logan and look down her posts in X, and you'll find this interview. And we would encourage you to take a look and listen through as much as you can. It is a pretty long interview. It might take you a couple of sessions to get through, but we find some fascinating things that we believe will ring familiar to many, and they are difficult subjects, but probably quite important for folks to be aware of. The other thing we would recommend is take a look at Mike Smith's movies. One is Out of Shadows. That is free to view now. It has been out for several years, and it details again his time in Hollywood, some of his work in the stuntman industry, but also some of the things that he discovered once he knew what to look for. And then now the new movie Into the Light, and it's available for a small cost to be able to view online and so forth, and you can make that choice should you choose to. So with that, we'll close for today. We appreciate you being here with us. We're going to continue to watch what's going on the national basis. We think that we're in a period where it is critical to know what we're looking at, to be able to understand what's being disclosed, and be able to give you the tools so that you can review it for yourself and make sure you remember it, because we're living through what I believe is quite a historical set of information disclosures. And then two, we will bring you what's going on in Georgia as diligently and as quickly as we can. We think there'll be some commonality. Very frankly, we're not immune to thinking, why is this happening? These weird disclosures in Georgia at the same time that things are happening nationally. Well, we will see. So thank you again for being here, and we'll be back on Sunday at 2 p.m. Look for Todd Wood and his show, The Skiff, every weekday morning from 10 till noon. And he has some wonderful topics. And given that he's traveling internationally right now, I bet you'll see some things on the international stage that will be important for you to know. Once again, we appreciate you being with us, and we will see you next time.